My wife's bike had an unfortunate encounter with our garage door. As for who to blame, the jury is still out. Be that as it may, this is what we're left with. It's not really deep, but deep enough. Definitely affecting the clear coat. It may in fact make its way down slightly in and through the paint. However, I'm taking this opportunity to test this with a product. This product is called Gold Label Detailing, and I just bought this on a whim off of Amazon, and I just want to see if we could fill this. I got a feeling I'm going to have to redo this after the fact, but I'm going to give it a go. It's activated by sunlight. Let's just get started. Strangely, I point out that this product isn't always on Amazon. I do find it on eBay, and the website that's written on the container is not the website for it. It resolves to a different website, tireinc.com. We'll start by cleaning out this area. Cleaned it slightly, but we're going to get in there and try and remove any debris before we get started. And I could see especially the piece all the way to the right and directly next to it, definitely a bit deeper than I want it. This will give me a good idea though as to how this product will handle the scratches in the clear coat at what level and at what level it's no longer practical. The instructions are on the side of the marker. It starts off by saying to shake vigorously for 60 seconds, so we're going to do that. We can see that for each marker, 2 tips are provided in a separate bag. I'm just going to remove one of the tips now in preparation for this. Put it off to the side. I don't want to get any dirt on the tip because that'll transfer into the clear coat. It specifically mentions that the marker should not be exposed to sunlight, which makes sense. So I'm going to have to go and roll the motorcycle into the shade. And now I'm going to be working in the shade here. The bike has been moved. We're going to prime the marker now as per the instruction. And so I open up the cap and take the provided tip. And I push it in. I can feel that it's spring loaded. I'm going to use the end of the cap to do this as I push it down a couple times. It's going to release some of that clear coat into it. I can already see it wicking down to the bottom. At that point I see it fully saturated. Give myself an idea about how thick this stuff is. Take a look. It's actually very thin. So this is good. This should get into a lot of the crevices pretty good. I don't want it too thin. I don't want it to run a lot, but we'll go with this. We're going to move on to the application portion. I'm going to cover it with a cap. Now I'm starting the application procedure. I'm starting from the right. And as I'm applying this, what probably would have been helpful, turning the bars in the other direction, would have made this rear fender a bit more level. I figured that out later. It wasn't really much of an issue, but at least I figured this out before the drying process. And as I added, one thing that I find I'm dealing with slightly, not too much of a problem, is air bubbles. Actually using the marker to remove those air bubbles, but it does introduce more clear coat, obviously, as I go about doing that. So something to take into consideration. I don't want air bubbles in there. And the other thing is obviously the crevices on the right are much deeper, but it does do a very good job of filling in the minor scratches almost immediately. And I know that the way that I'm applying this is going to require me leveling this once this is all completed and dried. The way this is, however, using the sunlight to apply this means that I'm going to have to wait 12 hours after application. Yeah, I'm removing some of that excess because I hadn't leveled the bike properly. And removing the excess obviously means that the other end is becoming more shallow. So we could see that initially as I end up wiping up the stuff from the left, it's only depleting the clear coat that has been removed from the right. So it took me a little bit to figure this out initially, but eventually I figured out. What we see though is in fact the air bubbles that are forming. We could see 3 of them clearly shown here on the video, and I'm using the marker to try and remove those air bubbles before they set in. This might look futile, but right after these bubbles are gone, I'm going to be leveling the bike and then cleaning this up and then making sure that this is filled properly. It's just I didn't want the bubbles in there because I know that it's going to be really hard to get those out if the bubbles dry inside this clear coat. Propped up the kickstand on the big twin transmission holder in order to stop the fluid from going off to the left hand side, and this has fixed that issue. The bike is then backed out to the sun so the curing process could begin with the ultraviolet rays. And we could see the two areas that are just a bit deep and might have affected the paint. This is okay. This is just something that I'm trying out so I could go back and repair this later. We're going to come back in 12 hours and we're going to reevaluate. One thing pleasantly surprising is once it had cured, the areas that were more pronounced with it, clear coat actually chipped out and we had that exposed paint. Is the damage is less pronounced now, I can see. As it had settled a little in those two areas, I'm going to apply second coat just in those areas to make sure it's overfilled for the sanding portion to come. And we can see this overfill completed, and what I'm doing now is a wet sanding. See how the spray adheres, and this is a 2000 grit wet sanding. This is very smooth sandpaper, and the sandpaper immediately shows what we're working with. I'm trying to be careful to stay on point with the work area and not sand excessively on the clear coat of the motorcycle where there's no damage. And I'm bringing back, knocking down essentially what I've put on there so that we can bring everything back to a smooth surface. And it's looking good. Again, just trying to be careful to stay in the work area, constantly inspecting the work. I never went under 2000 grit for this. I have to have a reasonable expectation at this point that those low areas are still higher than the clear coat of the motorcycle, or else I'm going to have to reapply a coat. So I'll watch as this island of clear coat overspray shrinks, how those are looking, and so far it's looking good. It looks like I'll still be able to remove everything in a uniform fashion. Now I'm going to move to about a 4000 paste to buff this out, see where we are. We can see with the paste, everything starts to shine up. The areas affected, some of it is a little bit of paint damage under there, but a lot of it is starting to fade more and more, so I just keep buffing it as those areas fade. And eventually we're left with an almost perfect shine, just a little bit of artifacts left on there. So you look at the before with the scratch and the chunks of clear coat missing, and you look at this after with just barely a silhouette of damage left. Look at the before again, so we could look at another angle of the after, a close-up, and you could just see a slight lightness in the paint where the heavy damage was that left a small artifact. And that's my clear coat repair using this gold label product, a pen that applies clear coat and uses ultraviolet light to harden it. Turned out to be a great product. I hope you found this enjoyable, entertaining, and informative. Do me a favor, hit that like button down below. Helps me a lot when you do. And hit that subscribe button for more videos like this when they come out. Again, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching. Would you like to reply?